All right, so today I have for you a 2005 BMW E46 M3. Now, this was a hero car for me when I was younger. Back in high school, like, this is the poster car, this is the car you get, this is like the car that you can accomplish, you can dream for, you can buy because it's relatively affordable. Well, it was, and then post-COVID, the prices have shot up. So now these cars are sub $30,000, above 20, some are in the 40s. So this is a 2005, it's got 106,000 miles. I picked up a manual transmission. So this is the first time I've ever actually owned an E46 M3. It's an okay spec. I mean, it's gray on gray. It's charcoal. But it's got the typical E46 problems. It doesn't have the E46, like the main issues, like, subframe. It doesn't need Vanos, and also bearings. It doesn't need those yet, but obviously the next person that will own this car after me might need that. But kind of going forward, it's got the typical in the corner issues, in the back. It's got the typical sunroof gets stuck type of thing. But overall, it's a pretty solid car. So today I want to talk a little bit about what's like meeting my hero as a car. Especially after coming from a 2018 GT3. So this is going to be one heck of kind of an interesting type of video. Now, starting off here, this car does have a really tight short shifter. Not really going to rev it out yet. So yeah, short shifter is good in this car. I really don't like BMW long shifts. They're extremely annoying, especially coming from, I had a Honda Civic, and then I went to the 18 GT3, which was a really tight shift. Honestly, one of the best shifters you can buy. And then to this car, and this car's kind of been interesting. In comparison, the E46 M3 kind of feels like a Buick. It's very strange to say, but if you come from a GT3, or you come from pretty much even like a Carrera 4S into this car, you end up feeling like you're pretty much driving a Buick, and it's really strange to me. It's like the riding, the handling is very soft. It's a touring car. It's not a track car. It's a touring car. So you go through kind of this different feeling of a car. This car doesn't feel like you can thrash around as hard. Of course, you don't get as much feedback. This car's mostly stock. Except for the short shifter and maybe a couple of exterior bits here and there. But you end up kind of going through this car, and it's a little bit of a different experience than a Porsche. So, but as a BMW, what is this car as a BMW? Now, the E46 is like the poster child car, coming out in the year 2000 with a flat 6 3.2 liter S54 engine producing about 343 horsepower. It was a bit of a beast at the time, and this is before BMW decided to launch their V8. Now, this car handles quite well. It handles a bit differently than a lot of other cars on the market. And to me, it's strange. I drive this car, and it doesn't feel like a $30,000 car. And I have a pretty nice example. I have a pretty low mileage example. Pretty overall solid car. With relatively new parts on the thing, and it does not feel like a $30,000 car to me. Take some of these corners. Careful with the tires, because these tires are not warmed up yet. But no, it feels nice. Yeah, like taking that corner was just not as intriguing to me as what it could have been with another car. It really doesn't excite me as much as some of these other cars do. Maybe if it had a tire suspension, it would. Maybe if there's some modifications done, a little bit lower, lower the car a little bit, it would excite me. But it just doesn't excite me as much as I think it should. Let's turn here. I mean, so the car sounds good. It doesn't have an exhaust. It's stock on this thing. But it sounds good. It gets up there. It's fast. But then again, it's a 20-some-year-old BMW M car. You know, do I think this is the next car to buy, the next investment? Yeah. What do I think about the values of these? Yeah, I think a solid manual car that's in mint condition will bring you a good amount of money in the future as an investment. But your average E46 M3, especially an SMG, and they made 86,000 of these cars. It's you know, they're special, but it's, to me, they're not my thing, you know? I would much rather hop back into just even a base model Carrera than this car. And it's a fun car. I mean, it's not boring in any regards. So yeah, the E46 M3, what is it? So they made this car in a coupe in the US, and they gave it, you know, a stiffer suspension, a little different than the ZHP. They gave it a nice manual shifter. And then they also had 2 generations as well. They had a pre-LCI, and then they also had an LCI model. Now, the LCI ended up getting a couple little updates here and there. Not a whole lot, a little bit of technology, different headlights, LED lights in the back, that type of stuff. But nothing too crazy, you know. Most of these cars didn't really receive too many, you know, like it didn't really receive that much of a major update, especially with the E92 and E90 chassis that came out, because then they finally gave us a sedan, and we wanted a sedan ever since the E36 model came out. So they gave us back a sedan in the next generation. Now, the E46 as a whole had different chassis. They had you could get this car in a coupe, you could get this car in a convertible, and then also you could get the dreaded SMG transmission. And the SMG transmission had that pump, that automatic pump, that was kind of like the pre-double clutch transmission type of thing back in the day. So, kind of going into this car, this is the manual, and if you're gonna buy this, you need to get a manual. But also you gotta make sure that the thing's been taken care of, because these things get abused. I mean, these things get beaten. This is gonna be the next beater E36 soon. So definitely keep an eye out, make sure you're not thrashing this thing too hard, make sure no one else is thrashing too hard. And yeah, I mean, it's a solid car. I mean, it handles corners pretty well. It is BMW, so it does suffer from BMW things. I always want to keep an eye on the coolant gauge here. Ooh, yeah, it's fun. It's fun, but you know what I noticed though, is the front end just isn't that tight. And I don't know why it is. I mean, this has hydraulic steering. This has the classic steering that you need, that even the GT3 didn't have. And it still feels soft in the front end. I mean, in the back, it feels planted. It grabs the corner, yes. And even with these sticky tires, it does. But it still feels like it's kind of empty. Like it's missing something in the front. And it could just be that I came from a GT3. Okay, sure, yeah. I've driven a lot of other cars since then. I have a Lexus, which is like way softer than this car. Driven trucks, you know, I've driven F-150s and Rams recently. I have a car dealership now. But this car, like, it still feels empty in the front. It feels like there's nothing, like, remaining. And I don't know why that is. So, yeah, I mean, overall, super solid car. Would I recommend you buy one? I'd wait till maybe values come back down. I mean, especially I'd focus on buying the manual, but I'd wait for values to come back down, especially on these E46s. They're really cool, but they're not $30,000 cool. They're just not. And I mean, I'm trying to sell this thing, right? You know, like I have it listed for $24,000 right now. Yeah, I think $24,000 is a solid number for it, but I just don't think it's $30,000. I mean, maybe a super nice modified one with some nice wheels, a nice color. Sure, but you know, but I understand why the values have come up on these, because the next up car you can get from this really is a Carrera, And you can't really get it even, like a 2005 997 generation Carrera is super expensive now. It's like $50,000 for like a decent mileage Carrera. So yeah, I understand the values on this and why it's like that now, you know. Take some corners in here. Gotta watch out, it was a little rainy a little earlier, and these are not the tires for it at all. I also don't have a radar detector in this thing, so kind of hard to keep an eye out. So as someone who might have a budget, is this the car for you? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a super solid car. Are there other cars I would buy at this price point? That's the challenge. Is there other cars you can buy right now in this market at this price point? That's a really hard one right now. Don't cross the road, buddy. Stay right there. Yeah, so what is there at this price point? I mean, maybe a used Aston Martin, maybe something a little older. You know, you can start getting the E92 V8s around this price now. You can start finding them, and I think that's the car to buy because they only made the BMWs with the V8 for a very limited run. Like the 3 Series with the V8, the M3 with the V8. As much as there's a higher maintenance cost, they only made them for a limited amount of time, and that's what I think I would pick up on is one of those years, maybe like a 2011, 2012, 2013. I'd pick up one of those because that's probably the car for you. That's the car that's going to appreciate in value, I think, the most. And that's next right after this car, for sure. Woo! Woo, there we go. Yeah, sport mode definitely wakens this car up. You know, it's a bit different. It doesn't have that soft comfort when you put it in sport. You know, I'm pretty sure that it probably tightens up some dampening there in the car. But yeah, it does make it come alive. It boosts up those RPMs to really just kind of excite you. But still, it still is missing that it's got that softness in the front end that I don't understand in this car. You know, and it's great. It awakens the car up. I can feel it. You know, it's got some super solid steering though. Definitely tighter than a E46 sedan, you know, even a sport package one for sure. So final thoughts on the E46 M3. It's definitely an interesting car. You know, I think you can feel its age. It's got a timeless design. You know, the horsepower, the 300 plus horsepower is definitely enough to keep you up to speed with a lot of the cars nowadays. You know, like a base model Lincoln V6 has 300 horsepower nowadays, you know. So, you know, this car was awesome back in the day. Still is, you know. It still keeps you, you know. Would you much rather drive this or a Lincoln, right? Woo! Definitely tracking in the road here. So yeah, I mean, you would definitely want to take this car over a lot of other cars. You know, it's a lot more fun. It's cooler. You know, I don't think it looks as cool as like an E92, but I think it definitely has a timeless design. It's the E46. It's got those wide fender flares. And yeah, I mean, it does the trick. It does the job. For $30,000, I don't know if I'd recommend it, you know, especially in today's market. But I think if you're on a budget and you're looking for something fun, you know, maybe get a really nicely sorted SMG, but also if you can get a manual, get the manual. The manual is what you need. It's way better than all the others as well. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching my quick video about the E46 M3 and my opinions. You know, I think I'm going to get some haters in this video, but in general, yeah, it's a super solid car. Would I recommend it for a lot of people? Yeah, I think so, you know, but if you're coming from a GT3, probably not. So anyways, guys, make sure to rate, comment, subscribe to the video, and I'll catch you next one.